What's up, y'all? We're getting into Empire Storms today. This is what's happening. This is what's going. Spent a lot of time on this review, so it's going to be pretty long, so let's just get right to it. I have a structure for how this is going to go. So also, I have lots of stuff in front of me. I have my computer out, I have my notepad out, I have my book out, so I'll be looking down a lot just because I got a lot going on. So first, we're just gonna start off with my overall thoughts on how I felt about the book, and then I'm gonna go into more positive and negative stuff, just kind of in the general overview. And then I'm giving my own rendition of the plot. This plot is extremely thick. It's almost 700 pages. There's a lot that happens. So we're going to talk about it. It's going to be interesting. And then just kind of at the end emphasizing in general my own thoughts. So yeah, let's just get right into it. So first, we're going to be talking about my overall thoughts on this. So I've been debating on whether I'm going to give it a 3 or a 4 star, just because after reading it, there were things I realized I didn't really like about it that weren't very strong in the book. But now looking back in general as I've been reviewing it and in comparison to the other books I've read in this series that I did give 3 stars, this is way above the others that got 3 stars. So I'm giving this a 4 star. And basically, one of the reasons why I gave it a 4 stars just because I was so much more entertained than I was in the other books. And just some other positives, I really liked a lot of the twists that happened. I think because there was so much content, like I was constantly getting surprised and like I kept forgetting things. So like it was fun to see things happening. And also these 2 characters that I really liked in this book were Aiden and Manon. Their stories were great. I loved their commentary, etc. And I also really liked Aelin and Rowan's relationship in this book and how it progressed and things we found out about it kept me really interested. And now let's go into some of the negatives. I've got a lot of negatives to say about this. So first of all, this is the 5th book in this series, okay? We started off with some main-ish characters. We started off with like the 3 main characters. And you know what? One of them was not even included in this book. My boy, okay, first of all, the way you pronounce this character's name is Kale, but I call him Chal because that's just how I've been reading it. So I guess I'm gonna call him Chal in this, but he's not in the book anyway, so it doesn't even matter how I'm pronouncing it because he's irrelevant. They completely got rid of this character. But the next book in this series is the novella about Chal, but still, you could have included a bit more than the 3 sentences in this entire book. I digress. So that's the main, that is not the main negative. That is just the beginning of the negatives. So the next thing that I had a lot of issues with was the insta-love and the coupling of every single main character in this book. So we have like 4 couples. And the only one I liked was Aelin and Rowan because first of all, they actually have chemistry. And I don't know what that was. And second of all, because all the, like they had stuff happening from Heir of Fire like 2 books ago. You know, so they have development. They have background with each other. But the other 3 like couples, nuh-uh, there is nothing there. Like I just did not see it. Why can't people be friends? First of all, and why are we all in straight relationships? There's no representation in this book. They're all white and there is one canon bisexual character, my boy Aiden. I will talk about that later. But did not feel like any of it was realistic. And again, why can't people be friends? So I had some issues with that. And then my next big issue was that almost all of the male characters in this book felt the same. I had to print out like a fan art guide so I could remember what these characters looked like because they didn't act any different from the rest of them. You know, it was all like these fae and like they have powers of some sort and they're super muscular and they're super good looking and they're all royalty and they all have the same like territorial kind of personality to them. Like I'm okay with really Rowan having that because he's like the main male character and that's just kind of, I don't know, I'm okay with him with that, but then having every single other character like that, I don't want to see it. I want to see something different. Give me something new. So another thing about this book is that the past couple books have been kind of centered in the same part of the world. And in this one, we started going everywhere. And I was confused. I was disoriented most of it. I had to keep flipping back to the map. But then also, I did not realize there's another book called Assassin's Blade that is a prequel to the series. And I thought it came out after the series was over. So I didn't read it before this book. And I guess it came out before this. So there were a lot of characters in that story that ended up coming in here, which didn't help in me feeling confused because we were just kind of getting introduced to new characters and new territories and new areas that Aelin is supposed to know about, but I don't, right? So it just felt very disorienting for a lot of the book. And then the other thing that I had an issue with was that we started to see that our narrator is pretty unreliable. So basically, what I really liked in the last book in Queen of Shadows was that, you know, Aelin always had something going on. She always had another thing that she was coming up with, and then she would show us at the end but not really tell us. And I was like, wow, Queen, she knows what she's doing. She has all these other like plots happening. Like she's always thinking a step ahead, which I really liked. But she's still doing the same thing in this book, and it just felt like our narrator was lying to us because she would tell us one thing and tell the characters one thing, but then go off and do something else. Or she would like tell us something that we had no idea about, so it didn't really land. It didn't feel like a plot twist just because we didn't know anything about it. So I just felt a really bad disconnect with Aelin in this book, especially that we had so many new characters, so many new places that we were at. I just didn't really feel connected to her, and she was lying to us. So like, you know, so it just, a lot of the stuff at the end where even though it was a plot twist and I liked it, I still felt really, I did not like that I wasn't getting told stuff because then it doesn't really land when it happens. And then my last point, this story is a Harry Potter playoff. I'll get into it, but can there be something original? So those were my main feelings about it. So let's just get into the plot. So here we go. Okay, so before we get into the plot, I just kind of want to briefly describe all of the characters so you know who's who, because I counted, there's about 14 main characters in this story, and we're confused. I'm going to use my little fan art sheet to all help us. So basically I divided it up. I got my little sheet. I divided it up into 3 bigger sections. So we have Aelin, who is our main character. It's this girl right here. So she started off the series as Selena, you know, the whole assassin, etc., etc. So they're the same person, right? But Aelin ran off, whatever, you know. So she has like fire power, so she's a fae, and that's her main thing. And then from that first couple books, we have Dorian, who was the prince of Rithold, which is where we started, and he has the power of like ice, so he's also fae. And then we have Aiden, who is Aelin's cousin from where they're originally from, which is Terrasen, and that's up in the north. So, and then from Aelin's past, when she was Selena, she wasn't friends with, but she became friends in Queen of Shadows with this girl named Lysandra. And so she's on this journey with us too. And she has the power of shifting her body, like, you know, like shifting to other animals or shifting to another person. So that's her power. So that's kind of in Aelin's circle. And then we're moving in this way. We're moving east. So that's where all the fae are. So that's where Aelin goes in Heir of Fire, which is the 3rd book. And that's where she kind of trains and learns about her powers. And there we have Mauve, which is the queen, you know, so she tried to find answers about the keys, etc. So Mauve's kind of a baddie, but not like too much of a baddie, you know, we don't really know what's up with her. And then that's where we meet Rowan, who trained Aelin and eventually went to Aelin's side. You know, they did the Corona whatever bond, so now they're like together. And then still in that, so they're all officers together, the people I'm going to discuss. So it's Rowan, and then we have Lorcan, who we met in the last book, who is working for Mauve, but then he runs away, he's stealing the keys. He has a whole thing. We meet up with him again in this book. And then we meet two new characters, who's Gavril, which is another officer, and Fenris, who is another officer, who are coming to the land to kill Lorcan. So that's that dynamic. And then we have the big baddie, which is Erewhon. I don't even know how to say that guy's name. Whatever. He's the big demon baddie who's in kind of the center of the land. And that's where all the witches are. That's where Manon is, which, love her. So that's where Manon, her 13, like her clan are. That's where all the weird like creatures were getting created. And, you know, Aylin's main job is to get rid of that big baddie because he's the main demon that was possessing everyone. So that's where they're all at. And Manon's grandma is the one that is kind of like selling the witches to like prostitution with what's his face? Erewhon's weird creatures. So the grandma's like crazy, but like Manon is there, and that's where we meet Elide, which is another character. I'm not even pointing all these out. I'll point them out afterwards. So Elide is the one where her mom was the one who saved Aylin when she was younger, and now Elide was captured. She was in the camp, and at the end of the last book, Manon ended up saving her. So now she's just off somewhere. So here's my little thing. So, okay, we have Aylin, our main girl. We have Aiden, the cousin, right? We have Dorian, the king. Nope. Well, I guess he is king now because the king died in the last one. So yeah, I guess he's the king. And then we have Rowan, who was, you know, bonded with whatever he was at the Fae, whatever. We have Lysandra, who can shift her body. We have Manon, who's the witch. And then these are kind of our more newest characters. So then we have Elide, who was stuck in the demon place and left. We have Lorcan, who was with Mauve, and he went to go take the keys, do his own thing. And then Gavril and Fenris are the one that are tracking him down to kill him. So that's where we start off, and that's where the plot begins. So let us begin. Okay, so for this plot, I'm going to be referring to my computer because there is so much that we need to discuss. And I also have quotes that I will be reading. So that's how that's going to go. And our story kind of starts in 3 different places. So I'm going to be starting with one story and then another and then our main story. So we start off with Manon and the 13. So that's all the witches, whatever. We've already kind of gone over who they are. So the main thing is that Erewhon wants to go and take over Rithold, where Dorian is the king. So Manon and her clan, they go to Rithold and, you know, basically ransack it. But our girl Manon, she has a little soft spot for Dorian, so she kind of ends up saving him from another clan member and, you know, kills the clan member. It's a whole big ordeal. But basically Dorian escapes with the help of Rowan. That's a whole nother thing. And so Manon must pay the price for that saving, you know, because other clan members had seen it and they were like, oh, you know, right? So her grandma's like, okay, so we're gonna have to kill your second, like in command. So Manon's not having any of that shit, right? And this is where we go to our first quote. So basically, you know, Manon is there and she's like, I want to be the one to kill my second because that's all I can give her, whatever, right? So here we go. Quote, hand trembling, Asterin presses her fingers to her brow and extends them. Bring our people home, Manon, she breathed. Manon angled Windcleaver, readying for the strike. The Blackbeak matron snapped, be done with it, Manon. Manon met Suril's eyes, then Asterin's. And Manon gave the 13 her final order, run. Then Manon Blackbeak whirled and brought Windcleaver down upon her grandmother. Oh my god. Okay, anyway, so our girl Manon attacks her grandma, which has been a whole ordeal. Like, we been like not liking her, right? But she has a lot of power. You know, if she does that, then Manon's basically exiled, etc. She's gonna get killed. Her 13 are gonna get killed, but she does it anyway. And queen. So basically that happens, and she's like, you know, they're kind of battling it out, and her grandma's like, you know, spilling stuff because that's what all people do when they're about to kill someone. They're like, here, I'm going to tell you your whole life story. So we find out that Manon is the last Crocian queen, which I did not really know what that meant at the time, but we learn later that the, you know, the Iron Teeth, so like the witches have been against the Crocians for a while, so it's kind of like their enemies, you know. So Manon is actually the last queen who was lost, and they're like, whoa, what? I'm a Crochan, right? But then her little dragon friend, Abraxos, I think, helps her escape. The 13 escape, but we don't know where. And basically Manon is just trying to survive because she's all bloodied up, whatever, because her grandma really did that. So basically Manon is, you know, just flying away. They're the weird creatures from Morith that are trying to attack her, but she keeps running away. You know, she's in and out of the darkness, they call it, because she's dying, right? And where does she end up? She ends up in Aylin's group ship. They're on a ship? I know. I'll explain it. So that's how Manon gets into our main story. She ends up almost dying on her Reverend dragon in the middle of all the other main characters. So now we have another group. We have Elide and Lorcan. So Elide is running away from the big baddie demon, right? Just because Manon just saved her. And then Lorcan is the one that's trying to steal the keys from Mauve because he wants to destroy them himself. Lots of questions. He's trying to get into the camp. So he realizes, so they're both in the woods somehow, both in their different directions. And he finds out that Elide kind of smells like the demons. So he's like, oh, she must have information about this place, whatever. So basically they meet up and, you know, the weird creatures are trying to kill them. So they create this kind of pact of like, I'll tell you stuff about the camps if you protect me while we're getting through the mountains. So that's basically how that happens. So they're traveling together and they're trying to figure out more information about Aylin, because the main reason that Elide is running away is because she's running to Aylin for protection. So they're kind of going around and they find out that Aylin isn't going to the north. And they're like, what? Like, why isn't she going to the north where she's supposed to be? Like, that's where she's like supposed to rule. And they find out that she's actually heading south. So they kind of change their course a bit. And Lorcan's like, you know, you've given me enough information about this camp, basically, like, I'm gonna kind of dip, whatever. But, you know, that doesn't end up happening because he finds out that Aylin gave him a fake key. So he's pissed, right? So he's like, now I got some beef with Aylin and you want to go to Aylin, so we're both gonna go together. Of course, Elide and Lorcan start to, you know, have some feelings for each other, which I do not like at all. I liked them working together, but I didn't like, of course, when it became something else. So that happens. And also another important thing is that we find out that Lorcan's actually been in love with Mauve, his, you know, Fae Queen that he's bounded to, whatever. He's like been in love with her his whole immortal life, you know, but she still strings him along even though she doesn't care about him, you know. And she sent those 2 other Fae warriors to go and kill him, right? So it's not mutual, right? But he's like, but I have feelings for you, Elide. It's like, come on. Anyway, so they end up where this thing called the marshes, and they feel Aylin there. The whole weird demon party starts to come, and Lorcan realizes that they're not coming for Elide or him, they're coming for Aylin. So he sends them a signal to try and save them, right? And basically that's how they end up meeting the whole group. So now this is the main plot. This is the main plot with Aylin, okay? So we start off, Aylin just took down the whole thing in Rithold. Like, she killed she didn't kill the king, but the king's dead, you know. So she's heading up to Terrasand, which is where she's supposed to rule. That's her kingdom. So she travels up there. And basically, like, the lords are like, we don't claim you. You are not our queen, because where are your allies? You have no army. You're just a hothead. Which, first of all, true. So Aylin's like, you know, screw you guys. I am going to go find some allies. Hear that, you know, Dorian's getting attacked. So that's when Rowan goes off and he saves them. And Aylin's like, oh, go to Skull's Bay. I have some possible allies there. So that's basically where the next part of this story happens, is in Skull's Bay. We meet this main pirate. That's where we meet Gavril and Fenris. And they're like, yeah, we're here to kill Lorcan. And Rowan, who's worked with them, you know, for his whole immortal life, he's like, whoa, hey buddy, right? They're not friends. So that's where all that's happening. We find out that Gavril is actually Aiden's father. So that's a whole story, right? And then Aiden and Lysandra and Aelin end up in Skulls Bay too, so our whole gang is there. And of course, Aiden and Lysandra start to get a little something. And I'm just really not about it. I was not about it, okay? So that's all happening. They're trying to get allies from here. And then also the pirate lord has this tattoo which shows where magical artifacts are. So Aelin's trying to get more information about where the keys are. You know, but of course, our boy Erwin, whatever, however you say his name, the big demon baddie, he starts sending more creatures their way. So there's this whole army that's coming. This is the first Valge army. The second one is when Lorcan gets involved, but this is the first one. So they're in Skulls Bay. So our girl Aelin's like, you know what would be like a great message was if I showed everybody that I'm super powerful. So she bonds with Rowan and his power. So she's getting all of his power. And she uses one of the keys, I think accidentally. We're not sure. But she uses all this power and like literally like nobody's ever seen that much power before. You know, she's like going crazy, whatever. She's losing control. And she gets connected with some god, which tells her this message. Okay, so this is message 2. Well, actually, I guess it tells Rowan because Rowan's also connected with her. So that god is trying to stop Aelin. And so by that, she's telling Rowan this information. So every key has a lock. Tell the queen who has promised to retrieve it soon. For all the allies in the world shall make no difference if she does not yield the lock. If she does not put those keys back with it, tell her flame, oh, sorry, I just kicked the camera. Tell her flame, iron, together bound, merge into silver to learn what must be found. A mere step is all it shall take. Then she looked away. So basically the rest of the story is about finding this lock. Something very important is that Aelin and Rowan get together, you know, that kind of thing. Because I guess it's been a whole thing since the 3rd book that they haven't, you know, had sex, whatever. So that happens, very important to the story. And then so the Pirate King is like, yo, I know where that lock could be because it shows on my hand. So let's go. So that's where the next part is. They're going to the Stone Marshes to go find this lock, whatever. So on their way there, they're on a ship. Do you remember when Aelin was on a ship earlier? You guessed it. This is when our girl Manon comes crashing through the sky, almost dying, okay? So they're on their way to get the key, and Manon just enters the chat. She's like, hello, we're here, I'm dying. So, you know, they kind of revive her, whatever. Dorian is trying to help Manon because, you know, she had saved him. You know, there's this kind of weird connection going on. You already know where this is going, right? But basically, Manon lets Dorian know that Elide is alive and to tell Aelin that, which is a very big part or very big moment for Aelin because she has been looking for Elide all this time because, you know, her mom was the one that sacrificed for her. Whatever, they got a thing going on, you know? And then Manon and Dorian, of course, have a thing going on. Like, I'm kind of okay with it, but not as, I don't know. I just like both of their characters, but I don't like them together. So that's a whole thing. So of course, these demons come back again. And so they're attacking. And one of them tells Manon that, you know, Erwin is like trying to get back at her and that the 13 had been captured and her second was killed. Erwin knows that Aelin has a key, which she is trying to hide from him, you know, but because she showed off all of her power, you know, everybody knows that she has a key now and that she's very powerful. So way to go, Aelin, you really did that. And they also find out that Manon is that last Crochet queen. She starts telling them all that stuff about, oh, we were like enemies, but I'm like the alliance, whatever. And they're talking about Mauve. You know, there's just a whole discussion. All of our characters are kind of coming together. And one of them, I think it's Gavril, he's like, you know, Mauve is never going to do this. You know, Nameless is the price. Remember that? Because it freaks Aelin out. She's like, oh, what? Like, she like leaves. Nameless is the price. Remember that? So she's like sick, right? And then Rowan thought it was because like she was pregnant. No, bitch, that's not why. So finally get to the marshes where this where this lock is, right? Rowan, Fenris, and Gavril they're all, discussing, and they're like, something's like so fishy here. Like something is so weird. Like both these queens, Manon and Aelin, are here on this path. They cover all 3 of the main races. Like, Mauve is like waiting to do something, like I feel something weird happening, right? So of course everyone ignores that. So they finally find this lock, and it's like in a chest or whatever. But oh no, what did they get? They're getting this warning from somebody. They feel something in the air, and you know who it is? It's Lorcan warning them that there's this huge ass army about to take, like demon army that's about to attack them. So they're like, oh, I guess the key can wait. Let's go kill a whole bunch of demons. So, I love this part. They're trying to discuss how they're going to, there's only like 7 of them up against like thousands of these demon creatures, and they're like, what are we gonna do, right? So our boy Aiden sticks up, and he's like, Aelin, this is your fault, King, right? Because it kind of is. Aelin knew very well that her eyes were now flickering with flame as she took a step towards him. So I guess that your perfect stage is over then. Aiden's lip curled off his teeth. This isn't a game. This is war, and you pushed Erwin to show his hand. You refused to run your schemes by us first, to let us weigh in when we have fought wars. Don't you dare pin this on me, Aelin peering. Where are our allies, Aelin? Where are our armies? All we have to show for our efforts is a pirate lord who might very well change his mind if he hears about this from the wrong lips. Aiden, is like what I'm also feeling, because the whole unreliable narrator is like, where are our allies? You don't tell us anything. We've been in war too. Why won't you just tell us something, right? Which, King, he's speaking for the readers. So thank you. So that all happens, and they set up a trap. Of course, Aelin unleashes herself again. She uses all of her power. Lorcan and Elide are literally chilling in the same area, so they almost die because they're in the crossfire, right? And Aelin's like spent. She already spent all of her magic, so she's a little tired. That's important. So she's tired. They show up, Elide and Lorcan, but we remember that Gavril and Fenris have been are bounded to kill Lorcan, and they can't stop it because it's been ordered by their queen, whatever. So they're literally trying to kill Lorcan right now. And Elide's like, whoa, what's happening? Don't kill him, right? It's like a whole big thing. So of course, Aelin figures out a way to bypass it. And so they're kind of not killing him, but then they hurt Elide in it, and it's like weird. But then all of a sudden, Elide sees her queen, Aelin, right? And then this is the part that I really liked. So note 7. So I had forgotten that Elide and Manon were really close. So Manon was the one that saved Elide in the 4th book. So when Elide sees Manon again, I was reading it in bed on my Kindle. I had to put my Kindle down, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot. And I was just like, man, it was a lot of emotion. So basically, I just kicked the camera again. Elide and Aelin share a moment. Your mother told me to tell you that she loves you very much. Those were her last words to me. Tell my Elide I love her very much. For over 10 years, Aelin had been the sole bearer of those final words. 10 years through death and despair and war, Aelin had carried them across kingdoms, and here at the edge of the world, they had found each other again. Here at the edge of the world, just for a heartbeat, Elide felt the warm hand of her mother brush her shoulder. Tears stung Elide's eyes as they slipped free, but then the grass crunched behind them. She saw the white hair first, then the golden eyes, and Elide sobbed as Manon Blackbeak emerged, smiling faintly. And I was like, queen. And then they're like, oh shit, we have the lock to take care of. So they go back, right? They go back to the chest to go get the lock, which they just fought for. And it's not even a lock. It's like this weird, mirror. It's like a witch's mirror. And they're like, what the fuck, right? Literally, Aelin's like, I just want this day to be over. That's quote unquote what she said. They're leaving, but then there's another navy waiting for them. And everyone's like, what? They're depleted after killing all those Valge demons. And then to have this other army coming to attack them. But oh no, Aelin always has something going on. So that's just one of her friends army that she now controls. And they're like, wow, we have this like navy, we have this weird mirror. Let's just go back to Terra Sand. We have allies, you know, they're gonna want us back. Let's go back, right? And then we find out that Aiden's a bisexual icon. So we find all that out because him and Lysandra are having a whole thing, right? Of course, because everybody has to be coupled up in here. But Aiden's a bisexual icon. So I'm like, okay, it's not a lot of representation, but I'll take it. So they want to go to Tisserand. So they're like, okay, we're going to go the next day. And then, of course, Manon and Dorian, they have sex too. Whoa, what? It's so important to the story. So that morning, they wake up and they see Mauv's fleet coming. And they're like, Mauve is coming to attack them. Rowan goes over and he tries to convince some of his older, like his cousins that he used to be friends with, to, you know, to join their side. And then my boy Dorian, his mind, he figures out that Aelin and Manon need to use the mirror to transport somewhere. So the mirror is just a device to get somewhere. So of course they go, but then they disappear and everyone literally attacks Dorian. They're like, dude, you just let them leave while Mauve is here about to kill everybody. So there are multiple chapters dedicated to what the mirror does and what it tells them. Long ago, Aelin's ancestors weren't able to capture Arrowing correctly. So basically they're paying the price for it by having one of their later generational children to be a sacrifice to forge a new lock. And you guessed it, who's going to be the sacrifice? It's either the bloodline through Aelin or Dorian. And we already know that Aelin's going to be the one to do it. And that phrase comes again, nameless is the price, because Aelin is nameless. She has the mark of a bastard. The mark of Brandon glows on her. That is what the price is her. So where is this? This is Harry Potter, I'm telling you, okay? Like, having to sacrifice yourself for the whole world, it's a play on Harry Potter. But anyway, she has to be the one to die. Her whole life has been guided with the help of the gods and the ancestors to help her find the key so that she can then die. So, there we go. So, the whole reason that they went to the marshes to go find the lock is to get all the information about how to make a lock. So that's where the mirror comes in, right? So everything from the previous 5 books have been guiding her to this moment. So like Oberyn in the last one, who was the assassin leader who trained her, like that was guided by the gods. Nehemia, her friend in the first 2 books, she purposely came up with her own murder so that she could break Aelin enough to get away from her persona of Selena to find her destiny again. And then a lot of just sad stuff happens. And I was a little upset. I was a little sad. So basically she's talking to the main god that befriended her in the first book. And she's like, why didn't you tell me from the start? And quote, you were barely climbing out of slavery, Elena said, hardly holding yourself together, trying so hard to pretend that you were still strong and whole. There was only so much I could do to guide you, nudge you along. So yeah, I was just real sad. And then she's like, I wanted you to have as much life as you could before you had to sacrifice yourself, which is why I let you live in like when you were like 10 years old, you know, and I wanted you to find somebody that you really loved, like Rowan, right? So that whole thing's happening. And then they get out of the mirror and they're dropped into these random like sand right on the island. And of course, do you know who's there? Mauve herself. She came to get Aelin. So meanwhile, there's a whole war going on. There's like a whole battle happening while they were stuck in that mirror. So Rowan's able to get his cousins to fight for him. So they turn against their own fleet. They're all fighting each other. You know, we hear a reverend dragon cry and all of the 13 are back to help Manon. And the group realizes that this whole war, after they've won it, was a distraction so that Mauve could get to Aelin while all of them were fighting. And they're like, oh my god, where is she? So now we're back on the beach with Mauve and Aelin. We find out that Lorcan, the one that was with the lead, summoned Mauve here so that he could say the lead. Then Manon bargains to take a lead from everything because she's like, yo, we don't have beef together. And Mauv's like, oh yeah, you're right. You can take this random girl, right? Like leave, right? Somehow, Mauve knows about the lock and knows about Aylin's sacrifice. And we get into this whole thing where basically Mauve has also been guiding her whole life. So when she was younger, so Mauve is like Aylin's aunt. Yeah, she's like her aunt, okay? So when she was younger, she kept telling her sister to like bring Aylin to her, right? But she refused, you know. She went as far as to, so she knew that Rowan and Aylin were supposed to be mates, which is a whole thing in the Fae world, right? So she manipulated Rowan to have to love somebody else. I got like a whole page for you to read, okay? So I didn't know when you would be born, but when Prince Rowan Whitethorn came into the world, when he came of age and was the strongest purebred Fae male in my realm, you were still not there. And I knew what I had to do, to leash you, to break you to my will, to hand over those keys without thought once you were strong and trained enough to acquire them. It was so easy to tug on the right psychic thread. That day, Rowan saw Lyria at the market, to shove him down that other path, to trick those instincts, a slight altering of fate. So your mate was given to another, and I let him fall in love, let him get her with a child, and then I broke him. No one ever asked how those enemy forces came to pass by his mountain home. So, you know, she murdered his mate, right? He took the blood oath without question, and I knew that whenever you were born, whenever you'd come of age, I'd ensure that your paths crossed, and you'd take one look at each other, and I'd have you by the throat. Anything I asked for, you'd give me, even the keys. For your mate, you could do no less. You almost did that day in Dornell, which is in book 3. And of course, Aylin's like, I'm gonna kill you, whatever, right? Because she's upset. And then Mauv's like, I'll admit I did not anticipate it, that I had broken Rowan Whitethorn so thoroughly that he did not recognize his own mate, that you were so broken by your own pain you didn't notice either. And when the signs appeared, the Karenum bond washed over any suspicion on his part that you might be his. What ends up happening is that she gives Aylin a choice. She's like, you can either come with me, or I will bring a lead with you too, right? So of course, Aylin's gonna take it and just go by herself willingly with Mauve. But you know, of course, before she gets captured, before they take her away, they have to break her even more so that she can't escape while she's in there. So Aylin, when she was in the salt mines before the first book, she got severely abused there, and she got whipped, and she has these scars from them. So of course, Mauve's psycho second in command goes and whips Aylin, of course, before she gets put in this iron casket, right? They're asking her to count how many strikes she keeps getting, and they keep starting over until she starts counting. And she's like, you know, I'm not going to count for you. Walked slowly, savoring each step as he let that whip drag along the ground. Her body betrayed her. It began shaking. She knew the pain, knew what it'd feel like, what it'd sound like. Her dreams were still full of it. No doubt why Mauve had picked a whipping, why she'd done it to Rowan and Dornell. So she gets taken on that ship in this iron casket to get taken away so that Mauve has control of her and has control of the keys. So of course, Aylin always knows what's up. She knows what's happening. And she gave Manon the keys. So they're taking Aylin without even what Mauve was looking for. So of course the gang gets back together. So they come back, and so Rowan is literally like obviously pissed off. And he's like, you know, where's Aylin? Where's my wife? And I'm like, bro, why are you calling her your wife? Like, that's weird. You guys aren't married. Turns out they did get married because Aylin knew that Mauve was coming to take her. So she married Rowan so that Terrasen could have a true king when they came back to Terrasen without Aylin. And then basically Lysandra also makes this deal with Aylin that once Aylin's gone, Lysandra is going to pretend to be her because she's a shapeshifter. So basically at the end, we're splitting up all the groups. Aiden and Lysandra, playing Aelin, are going back up to Terrasen with their army that they've now acquired. And then, then Manon and Dorian are going to go find all the Crocians, because with the 13, because, you know, Manon is now the queen and they're going to try and get allies there and keep the keys away from Erwin and Mauve. And then our boy Rowan, Aline, Lorcan, and Gavril are going to find Mauve and then save Aelin. So that literally is the plot of that book. So to wrap up, like, all in all, there were things that I didn't like about this, obviously, but I have to say it was pretty entertaining, you know, so I feel like I have to give it 4 stars. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens next. Like, I really still like Aelin, even though, you know, I like when people are talking back at her because I think she needs it. But I think in general, I'm really excited for the next book. So the novella about Chaul is supposed to be the one I read next, but I'm kind of feeling conflicted about it. So we'll see if I end up really reading it. But yeah, I did not think that this is where this story was going to go. But yeah, this was my very in-depth review. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see about Kingdom of Ash. So see you later.